Hello dear viewers and welcome to T-World. Kindly hit the subscribe button and we will be on our way. In today's news, Rudy Giuliani plus Roger Stone plus Oath Keepers plus Proud Boys plus a secret call equals in the practice of the Clintonometer, the Trump Apocalypse Watch, and the Impeach-O-Meter. The Is It a Crime-O-Meter is a stunningly emotional and speculative gauge of whether the Jan.6 select advisory group's work will persuade an adequate number of people of importance that Donald Trump perpetrated uprising-related violations, that he will be, in some design, considered responsible for them. The kid about having defector GOP Rep. Liz Cheney act as bad habit seat of the House's Jan.6 Select Council was that placing a Republican responsible for something could turn out to be the most politically successful move that cutting-edge legislative Democrats have made. It wasn't simply any Republican, possibly. It was the little girl of one of the most savage GOP administrators of his period, previous VP Dick Cheney. A man so talented in the deft dance of the political Roomba that he once pulled off shooting a person in the face. That examination has demonstrated sound. The board's prosperity or disappointment not entirely set in stone by political race results in 2022 and 2024. And, contingent upon how that goes, whether there is ever another political decision a while later, be that as it may. Meanwhile, its hearings have pulled high TV evaluations, apparently bumped the portion of Americans who accept Donald Trump ought to be arraigned for his job in the Capitol revolt upwards, and concurred with a somewhat non-grievous time of surveying for Democrats overall. Different individuals from the board most likely merit recognition for the adequacy of its introductions. Seat in Mississippi Rep. Benny Thompson specifically has figured out how to project reality and respectability without being unctuous or super dag-nab exhausting, an equilibrium that has demonstrated tricky for the majority of his ancestors in comparative jobs. However, to be sure, Cheney's articulations and turns addressing observers have been the most forceful, useful, and newsworthy of the beyond couple of weeks, among different reasons. This is on the grounds that she's played to the serialized TV organization of the hearings by prodding sensation-type disclosures and afterward completely broadcasting them later in setting that makes them considerably more emotional. Most outstandingly, she referenced during the main hearing that the Board of Trustees would introduce declaration recommending that Trump responded favorably when he heard that Horde in the Capitol was reciting the expression "Hang Mike Pence." She followed through with that commitment on Tuesday while addressing Cassidy Hutchinson, the previous associate to White House head of staff Mark Meadows. As an American, Hutchinson said in the wake of seeing a clasp from a past meeting with the council during which she related hearing Meadows enlighten another authority concerning Trump's supposed remarks, "I was sickened." A couple of different minutes on Tuesday recommend Cheney has some more sizzlers arranged, especially in regards to the White House's association with Jan.6 brutality. From the get-go in the consultation, Cheney had Hutchinson describe discussions she says she had on Jan.2 with Rudy Giuliani and White House head of staff Mark Meadows. Giuliani, in Hutchinson's memory, said the president arranged not simply to hold a meeting on Jan.6, however, to face Congress. "We're going to the Capitol," she recalled that him as saying, "Being great is going. The president will be there. He will look strong. He will accompany the individuals. He will accompany the congresspersons." Meadows, she said, told her that things could get genuine terrible on that day. So, as per this observer, an arrangement existed early on for Trump to go to the Capitol as well as enter it, to make a point about force of some kind. This would in itself have just been an exceptionally uncommon break of ordinary convention. Obviously, when the opportunity arrived on Jan.6 that Trump might have made such a visit, the Capitol was currently being invaded by nonconformists who crushed their direction through police lines, entryways, and windows to get into the structure and intrude on the certificate of Joe Biden's triumph. In its proclamations and introductions, the board has declared various times that this attack was prompted and driven by two volunteer army PAC gatherings, the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, during the Board of Trustees' most memorable hearing. It was noticed that few hundred individuals from Proud Boys showed up in the Capitol as once huge mob before Trump had completed the process of talking at his convention, which was being held in excess of a pretty far, and that individuals from the Oath Keepers entered the structure in what resembled a planned stack development. This would suggest the assault was planned as opposed to being the after-effect of suddenly excited feeling. What a few minutes in Cheney's scrutinizing of Hutchinson implied was that individuals near Trump were in correspondence with individuals from these gatherings long before the mob. In the first place, Cheney played a video from one of Hutchinson's meetings in which she said she for the most part heard the word Oath Keeper and hearing the word Proud Boys nearer to the preparation of the January 6th convention when Mr. Giuliani would be near. Cheney likewise noticed that long-lasting Trump guide Roger Stone was shot with various individuals from the Oath Keepers who were supposedly filling in as his security detail on Jan. 5th and Jan. 6th. Then, at that point, Cheney and Hutchinson had the accompanying trade. Cheney, Ms. Hutchinson. Is it your comprehension that President Trump requested that Mark Meadows talk with Roger Stone and General Flynn on January 5th? Hutchinson. That's right, that is my comprehension, Cheney. And Ms. Hutchinson, is it your grasping that Mr. Meadows called Mr. Stone on the 5th? Hutchinson. I'm mostly certain, possibly by mistake, that Mr. Meadows finished both a call to Mr. Stone and General Flynn the night of the 5th. Stone, who was sentenced during the Trump-Russia examination of deceiving Congress about who he had spoken with about the Clinton lobby's hacked messages, has denied addressing Meadows. Cheney likewise played a Select Board of Trustees statement video in which Flynn, Trump's most memorable public safety consultant, who confessed to deceiving government specialists during the Trump-Russia case too, however at that point attempted to withdraw his request and got exculpated by Trump, opted to remain silent in light of inquiries regarding whether be trusted the viciousness on Jan. 6 was ethically and legitimately legitimized. Then there was this, Cheney. Is it your grasping that Mr. Giuliani, Mr. Eastman, and others had set up what has been called, quote, a conflict room at the Willard Hotel the evening of the 5th? Hutchinson. I knew about that the evening of the 5th, Cheney. And can you say whether Mr. Meadows at any point planned to go to the Willard Hotel the evening of the 5th? Hutchinson. Mr. Meadows had a discussion with me where he believed me should work with Secret Service on a development from the White House to the Willard Hotel so he could go to the gathering or gatherings with Mr. Giuliani and his partners in the conflict room. Cheney. And what was your view with respect to whether Mr. Meadows ought to go to the Willard that evening? Hutchinson. I had made it clear to Mr. Meadows that I didn't completely accept that it was a shrewd thought for him to go to the Willard Hotel that evening. I didn't know all that was happening at the Willard Hotel, despite the fact that I knew enough about what Mr. Giuliani and his partners were pushing during this period. I didn't feel that it was a proper thing for the White House Chief of Staff to join in or to consider contribution in, and made that unmistakable to Mr. Meadows. Over the course of the evening, he referenced a couple of additional times going up to the Willard Hotel that night, and afterward ultimately dropped the subject the evening of the 5th and said that he would dial in all things being equal. So Meadows was anxious to meet by and by on the night prior to the mob with part of the gang who'd been tossing around the names of the gatherings that began the mob. This data everything except put a Goliath blazing foreshadowing sign over a trade that Cheney and Hutchinson had before. During Hutchinson's summary of what she recalled from Jan. 6th itself, at a certain point, Hutchinson said she had attempted to track down Meadows during Trump's meeting discourse to let him know that Capitol Police security lines were at that point being invaded. Hutchinson. He was in a safe vehicle at the time settling on a decision. So when I had headed toward the vehicle, I went to make the way for let him know and he had quickly closed it. I don't have the foggiest idea who he was talking with. It wasn't something that he consistently did, particularly when I would head toward give him data. So I was a piece shocked. However, I didn't respect it and feeling that I would have the option to have the discussion with him a couple of seconds after the fact. Liz Cheney. And would you say you were ready to have that discussion a couple of seconds after the fact? Cassidy Hutchinson. Probably around 20 to 25 minutes after the fact. There was one more time of between, where he shut the entryway once more, and afterward when he at last escaped the vehicle we had the discussion. Yet, by then there was a buildup of data that he ought to have been made mindful of. Liz Cheney. And so you made the way for the control vehicle and Mr. Meadows pulled it shut. Cassidy Hutchinson. That's right, Liz Cheney. And he did that twice. Cassidy Hutchinson. That's right, Liz Cheney. And when you at long last had the option to give Mr. Meadows the data about the brutality at the Capitol, what was his response? Cassidy Hutchinson. He nearly had an absence of response. I recollect him saying, okay. Something with the impact of, how much longer does the president have left in this discourse? At any rate, after I had associated the entirety of this string, feeling pretty satisfied with the sleuthing that had been finished, I figured out that the accompanying trade occurred on CNN 3 weeks prior. CNN anchor Jake Tapper. Are there going to be observers that depict real discussions between these fanatic gatherings and anybody in Trump's circle? Jan. 6 Committee Chair Benny Thompson. Yes. Tapper. There will be. Thompson. Yes. So there's that, too. The meter stays at full crime. with ketchup that President Baby tossed at the wall accessible for plunging.
If you made it to the end of the video, kindly hit the subscribe button and leave a comment, it helps the channel.